My name is Jennifer Kretovic. I am associated with the Concord Historical Society. About 6 years ago, we did the Upstairs Downtown Haunted Tour, and it was such a hit that people were like, we need to do that again. The best thing about this tour is that you can tell me if you have any haunted stories you want to tell as well. So we're going to start our conversation by going into the Kimball House. So this is the Kimball House. The Kimball House is connected to the Capitol Center for the Arts. And the reason we like to come at this place is because, believe it or not, this has got some crazy stuff that happens in many, many places here at the Capitol Center. This, of course, is the Kimball House. This was built by Benjamin Kimball. The house that was here previous to the Kimball House was built by Samuel Bullard. Samuel Bullard, interesting enough, operated a distillery. So our stories today really weave around the theme of water. Those that are familiar with the paranormal know that water is a conduit to ghosts. In Concord, you would think that source of water is probably the Merrimack River. It's a little far from where we are, though rushing water is important because that energy that it kicks up does kick up more of that spiritual realm. Here in the downtown, we need to be cognizant of the fact that we're built on a hill. You just climbed up a little hill to get into this space. And then we know Fisk Hill and Rattlesnake Hill and Auburn Street. And all of those places up on those hills have water and tributaries that come down. And they go under Main Street and they go out to the Merrimack River. Some of those tributaries, these buildings and this road is built over them. So we have flowing water beneath our feet. But in here, they hear things like this. You ready? There is no breeze that is going to open that door, slam that door, this solid oak door with the heavy glass in it. But for no reason at all, during the day, they will just hear, and no one's here. So let's talk about ghosts. Are you guys familiar about what this property used to be before it was the Concord Theater? Before the Concord Theater. This is really well known as the J.C. Norris Bakery, which is James Norris Bakery. He was not the first baker to operate out of this property. It was actually Mr. Sims, Ebenezer Sims. He was the first baker, and then he sold it to James Norris. James Norris happened to have been the baker during the Civil War. So during the Civil War, it is a well-known story here in Concord that Mr. Norris's bakery would bake 2,000 loaves of bread per day to serve the troops. The interesting story in this space is that after midnight, when the show is over and the roadies are breaking down the place, this is one of those spaces where you would expect to smell one of these lingering things, right, which is sometimes a haunting, is you have a certain smell, perfume, flowers, cigarette smoke. In this space, you would expect to smell, and they do not. They smell cookies. Why would they smell cookies in this space? Because after midnight, the only product during the Civil War that Mr. Norris could sell was molasses cookies. And the only time they could bake them was after midnight. So it's always been an interesting combination here in this place that sometimes the staff will be walking through and without purpose, they smell cookies. We do have an opportunity to go into the stage area, so let's go. So this space was renovated by the Capitol Center for the Arts, obviously for the Bank of New Hampshire stage. And we all know that during renovation, sometimes you can kick up some spirits, right? But how many are you familiar with some of the urban legends around the types of hauntings that exist? You've heard of shadow people. Have you heard of the Hat Man? Oh, are you worried about the Hat Man? No. The Hat Man has been seen in this space. And oddly, it's in the shadows. on this side of the wall here, kind of behind the curtain when there are people on stage, hiding in the shadows. And that's exactly what a hat man is. Pure black shadow, but with form, a solidness, no face, only blackness, with a fedora hat and a long coat. And it's the only time that the hat man has ever been seen is when there appears to be someone dancing on the stage. But other than that, the hat man has not been seen. So you'll want to pay mind to this when you come to this space in the future and you're here for a dance recital for somebody. Be aware, the hat man may be watching. When they did the renovations of this space, they had an opportunity to redo the walls, and they decided that for the decor, they would leave it the original brick to give it that feeling of the oldness that this space truly is. What we love about this space in the Bank of New Hampshire stage is the retractable seats, so it has flex space for anybody when they are renting this location. But again, two things you want to watch out for: the hat man and the smell of cookies, right? And the cookies probably not so bad, but the hat man, maybe not so much. All right, let's go to our next location. Everyone, I want to introduce you to Eric Reingold.
Hi, everybody.
Eric is the fourth generation owner of Endicott Furniture. The story goes like this. They've been in business for
98 years.
It was a quiz. And when they first started, they were across the street at the Endicott Hotel. And the Endicott Furniture name came across the street when they purchased this building, the Aquila building, in order to, right, it's two buildings.
Yeah, over the years, we've punched through into that building, which you will go through.
We're going to go through it.
And kind of expanded upward, downward, outward over the years.
Over the years.
Yes.
And so Endicott Furniture carried its name across the street. We're not quite sure what it brought with it. However, this is one of the hauntings that is a little bit more bizarre in that, and it may have some more familiarity to you. You've heard of poltergeists? This one has some playful ghosts to it most of the time. And I say most of the time because Eric and his staff, what happens is at night when they close up, everything's pretty much in order. And then they'll come in the morning and there'll be pillows all over the place, like someone's been throwing them around. Now, I came and talked to Eric because he's told me this story many times, and I'm always like, oh, still got the problem with the pillows? And he's like, yes. And then when I said, hey, can we come to your place for this haunted tour? He's like, yes, but now we have a problem. I'm like, what? And he goes, I came in and see this mirror over here, and you can all take a look at it. It was up on the wall and it fell down, and now the mirror is broken. It's probably one of the worst things they found in the morning is something that they hang with great care so that these things don't fall because they have actual value to him. And here's this beautiful mirror that fell and was cracked on the floor. The minute we said we're going to come on a ghost tour, then he has something like this that occurs. We're going to go upstairs into the attic space so that you can see what's up there. Just because it's really cool and really creepy, and why wouldn't we go up and see it, right? All right, so this is an attic storage space that Eric has for Endicott Furniture, but you also need to know this is not the attic. There is the attic that takes the ladder that goes upstairs. There isn't any lighting up there, so we're not going to be able to go up. We've been up here before on the upstairs downtown tour, and people have had an opportunity just to peek out. There is a point window, and you do get to see the State House Capitol from there. It is beautiful, but it is also a space that everybody says, wow, it's creepy. And you all did that when you were coming up here. It's got a vibe, I heard you say that. It's got a thickness to the air. And the funny thing is that when Eric and his staff are working, people will hear people walking around upstairs. People that have had haunted experiences, and they brush it off. They go, oh, it was probably this. Oh, it was probably that. Know that there are apartments and other businesses that are on top of the Aquila building on the second, third, and fourth floors. And so it's very easy to dismiss all that for just being residents of the Aquila house. Building, not house, building. We're going to go outside and we're going to take a look at the Aquila building. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about the Aquila name. Aquila is A-Q-U-I-L-A. Chase is the last name. The Chase family was very prominent here in Concord. And in fact, a block up on North Main Street is the Chase block. What's interesting is that from 1590 all the way through the generations of the Chase family, Aquila and Thomas have remained names in the family. So it was Thomas was the firstborn son, Aquila was the secondborn son. And then in the next generation, the firstborn son's name was
Thomas.
And the second name was?
Aquila.
Exactly. Thomas, Thomas, and Aquila, Aquilla. Some LLA, some LA. This Aquila that this building is named after, sorry, not this building, the building there, over there. He is Aquila Chase. He was the second-born son, but he was the one that came to Concord with the Chase family. So that's why the Aquila building is named after him. The Native Americans believed in the afterlife, there are three realms. There is the low realm, the medium realm, and the high realm. Shadow people operate on a low level. Apparitions, like what we would call ghosts, that is a medium vibration. And those that are a high vibration are what we would equate to as angels. So the Native American tribes believed that there were certain shaman fields in the different areas of the Native American lands, and Bicentennial Square is a shaman's field for the shadow people. So while the stories might be about margaritas, what they're really telling you is it's the shadow people of Bicentennial Square. So what's the difference between a shadow person versus the Hat Man that we talked about at the Bank of New Hampshire stage? The Bank of New Hampshire stage Hat Man has more of a physical look to them. They look solid. Shadow people do not. You know very well that that is a black mist moving past you. That is no wholeness that is held together by anything. And it comes and dissipates as it chooses to do so. But the thing is, it shouldn't be as scary as what a shadow person sounds like or traditional stories tell. The Native Americans believe that we all pass through many lives. And that when we're passing through the first time, we're all coming back as shadow people. And when we learn more, we gain more, and we work our way up to the higher levels. For the Pennacook tribe, the Abenaki people, they believe in the Great Spirit and the hunting ground. Eventually, you make your way back to the Great Spirit and the hunting ground, and you are no longer a shadow person or an apparition or an angel. You stay with the Great Spirit. We're gonna go up to the State House. One of the stories I want to share with you, we talked a little bit about water, and water being a conduit to that veil between the living and the unliving is. Everybody's heard of Pennacook Lake here in Concord, right? It's our water supply. There is a story that is published in 1910. It's called Wayside Jottings or Rambles About the Old Town of Concord, New Hampshire. And in it, there's a story that they talk about one of the gentlemen that lives up on Pleasant Street, right? Pleasant Street, in that most haunted block that we know, all Concord. And he dug a well about 600 feet down below. And he found the purest water on God's earth. That was what he claimed it to be. So when our forefathers were trying to decide what we were going to use for our water supply, Pennacook Lake was one option, and another was, we just passed through it, right in front of the Capitol parking garage in Durgan Lane there. In that space, 1,325 feet below our feet, is an aquifer 3 times the size of Pennacook Lake. This space here, where the State House is, this was not going to be the original location. It was going to be at Stickney Block. And there was an argument between the North Enders and the South Enders, and they decided to put it here. One of the arguments that the Northerners didn't want, the North Enders didn't want it here, was because this was a quagmire, a swamp. But it's important to know, that St. Paul's Church does have an open channel in the basement that has water that runs through it. So does Merrimack County Savings Bank. And both of those locations are supposedly haunted. Have you guys ever heard of the ghost of the White House? There are stories that float around about the Lincoln bedroom, that it is haunted. The real ghost of the White House is not Franklin Pierce, but it is his wife, Jane Appleton Pierce. He was the extrovert in that marriage, and she was the introvert. They had 3 children, 3 boys. Their firstborn son died in childbirth. Their second-born son, who was the namesake, Frankie, he passed away at 4 years old. And then there was Benny. And they put their whole life and soul into the raising of Benny as the last surviving child of Jane and Franklin Pierce. So Franklin Pierce is a U.S. Senator and U.S. Representative, and he's pretty popular in New Hampshire. And his fellow Democrats decide to have him run to be the Democratic nominee for the presidency. And lo and behold, after 15 votes, he wins it. And Jane is appalled that this is happening. She wants to read the Bible, she wants to go to church every day, and she wants to protect Benny. And he assures her that by becoming president, he is going to assure the lifelong success of Benny. He will never want for anything because he will have been the president and this will be the first child. Between the inauguration and the time that he is returning here to New Hampshire before he goes to Washington, D.C., they are traveling back from D.C. in the presidential train. And the presidential carriage, that cabin on the train, derails. There is one fatality. It is Benny. They lose their last son in front of them. And Jane Appleton goes into an insane asylum here because she is so aggrieved. Franklin Pierce goes to Washington and he also is so aggrieved. He is thought to be the worst president we've had. But the real ghost of the White House is Jane Appleton because she doesn't show up there for 2.5 years into his presidency. She goes for one party and then she comes back home. He comes back to New Hampshire. About 6 years later, she passes away. And he and his buddy, Nathaniel Hawthorne, not a name anybody would want to hang out with. He and Nathaniel Hawthorne, you know what they do? They tell great stories and they drink. And they drink a lot. So one night, they go up to Plymouth, because we all know Plymouth is a great place to go drinking, right? They go up to Plymouth. They have a vacation house up there. They've been drinking all night. And guess who dies in front of Franklin Pierce? Nathaniel Hawthorne. And he has lost his best friend. A few years later, he succumbs to cirrhosis of the liver, and he's buried in the Old North Cemetery in Minot Square with Benny and Frankie and Jane Appleton. So the very interesting story about this also is that in Concord, New Hampshire, in the home of Nathaniel Hawthorne, the place is supposed to be haunted. So Concord, New Hampshire, he hangs out here with Franklin Pierce, he dies in Plymouth, and then he goes and he haunts Concord, Massachusetts. Perfect. Way to go, Nathaniel. This is one of the most haunted places that we are going to visit today. In fact, they have more hauntings that happen all the time. I know this place as a haunted location because of the whispering that's heard here. Now, you would think that with all of these items that are in this place, that there's probably some residual energy from someone gone years ago that is causing this kind of vibration that happens in this place. I will tell you, when this place was completely empty before Hillside Consignment Shop moved in, you could hear whispering coming from the basement. Now, the property owner, I asked him, I'm like, I'm in here and I'm listening to whispers in the back. And he goes, it's people from next door at CVS. So Sue and her staff, they often hear whispering. They also have people that have seen a woman in period garb walk through the wall of the basement downstairs. And our newest employee, right here, she's hiding over there. She is the first person ever to see a man standing in the basement, in the back corner, up over here. Just kind of in the back. You can see it about chest high. She can see some overalls, can't really make out a face, pretty dark clothing, but there he is. No one's ever said that they've seen a man in this space. So now the question is, did he come with something that was brought here? Was he here before and nobody's noticed? Has he come from somewhere else? The odd thing about this location is the upper floors here. What was next door is the Phoenix Hotel. The Phoenix Hotel burned down in 1956. And when it went, the stairs to the E&P Hotel, which is right above us, were burned out of that building. There's no access upstairs. But yet, they hear people walking around. They hear voices. Their staff, Sue is the owner. They hear Sue talking to them, even though she's not here. I invite you to come back another day to see all the things that they have in this location, and I encourage you to go down in the basement so you can see the wall that the old woman walks through. And maybe you'll see a man in the corner, and then you'll let me know, okay? So this is the last location on our haunted tour tonight, which is Hills Avenue, and of course you can see everything runs downhill. The interesting thing about this spot is the carriage house that's across the street here. This used to be owned by the son Edmund Hill, who was the son of James Hill. James Hill was a very prominent businessman in town. There's the Hills Block, which is where Citizens Bank is, and Cobblestone and Rathyoung and Pignatelli is upstairs. That used to be a harness manufacturing business, harnesses like horses and for the carriages in the Lewis Downing carriages. So Edmund Hill ran a business that was a delivery business. And the delivery business being, hey, you have goods that need to be delivered. We got a carriage, we load it up, we take it out. It's horse-drawn carriages, and this is the carriage house where the carriages were stored and the horses were stored. It doesn't seem like it would be a haunted location, with the exception of the house that was here at this property is gone. And the carriages that were in that place were also the funeral carriages. The horse-drawn funeral carriages. Do you guys know what the sound of a nicker is from a horse? Do you know? You know that sound. This is what they hear in that building. I'm not very good at it, and I promise I might have my husband come up and do this. Are you ready? This is a nicker. That is what they hear randomly in the building. As if all of a sudden the law office people are working there, and the previous tenant was an architect, and they would hear it. They just hear this of the horse. They don't hear the jingling of the harness. They don't hear the jingling of anything of a saddle, just every once in a while for this random reason. So that ends my ghost stories for the evening. If you want to hear something even more scarier, I actually am an elected official here in town. I'm a city councilor. And it's an election season. How the scary thing is I am running unopposed. But I always encourage you to get involved in your community, even if it's doing something like telling ghost stories to a bunch of people that just want to have fun on a Friday night. You can get involved in so many things in our community, and even the communities that you come from. There is nothing more important than getting attached to local, even if that means learning some really good history lessons, some really good ghost stories, and just a really cool night on the town with your favorite city councilor.